Welcome to another episode of Production Pod. I'm your host, Marquell Byrd. I'm really excited. Today is really going to be a great episode. We're going to be talking about your mind and how to actually combat certain things that you may be surrounded through and by when you're doing production. So, again, Production Pod is an amazing podcast where we actually talk about how you could be your best self, and we interview different experts in different industries in production and really being able to produce things, people who are doing things with themselves. So this episode, I was thinking about my boy Joe. I brought him up last episode, and we were talking about just, your mind. And right now I'm writing something, and it's just so important for us to really stay focused through our journey. The things that we may be doing, if we want to produce something, if we're like thinking about even production itself, we have to prepare every time. If we're going to do a whole build out, or we're going to do a movie, we're going to do a trailer, we're going to do something, we have to always prepare. So I think about that in reference to my mind itself, because I brought up last episode my depression, and I said, I'm going to talk about this in another episode. And when I look back at what I was really going through financially, what I was going through mentally, physically, I just was not in the best space. I would even say not even the best person. And some people may even push back at me at that, because they say, yo, Mark, you always are positive. You always try to like do your best. Like, I don't know what you mean by that. And it's true. I don't think I was the best person. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean that I wasn't happy or nice to others. It means that I just wasn't nice to myself. And how it all started, I was living with my aunt Tasha, and I was at IAR, the Institute of Audio Research, and I was really depressed. It was probably the darkest time of my life. And I wrote out a whole letter. I said, you know what? I'm going to end it. I'm just going to call it quits. Like, that's it. No more. I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of being this way. And I believe that, we always bring up the enemy or the devil. We say these things, but I think they're also in reference to something that's just not connected to our best self. So for me, my enemy at that time was me. And I believed me. When I looked in the mirror, I believed that I wasn't a good person. I wasn't the best person. I wasn't this engineer. I would never be it. And you'll never be. And, I don't know what I was listening to at the time, what music, what I was surrounded by. I don't know. But I just was not in the best space spiritually or just mentally. And one day I wrote out a whole letter of an apology to my family and friends and people who I was close to during that time, just to let them know that, hey, it's okay. It wasn't your fault. And I left it on the bed, and I said, they'll find it. They'll find out that, this is what I was going through, because I had a journal, and I just sat it there on my bed because, I was like, yo, after they find my body, my aunt they're going to open it and be like, hey, like, he was going through something. And most people that usually are going to commit suicide and things like that, they usually don't tell anyone. They really are not the most vocal. You'd be like, oh my gosh, I was just with him. I never would have known. And that was me. I said, I'm not saying nothing. I'm just going to leave. I think it's best that way. So I was living on Gun Hill Road. I walked to the train, and that morning I was going to jump in front of the train, but I didn't. I'm still here, clearly. And when you go to Gun Hill Road, that train stop to catch the 2, you'll notice that you have to go up all of these steps to even get up there. You gotta fight to get to the train. And every step that I took up those, I didn't even take the little escalator. I took the steps. And every step that I took, it just felt heavy. And I was like, man, nah, this is it. Forget it. You don't have to feel. And that's the trick. You know what I mean? You really are tricking yourself that it's just not worth it anymore. So I stood there on the train platform, and I'll never forget it. I still feel the wind from the train and as it's entering. And I wanted to just jump. And God spoke to me in that moment and said, I have more for you. I have more for you. Like whispered in my ear. You know how people say, God whispering in your ear, like, oh, that's not a thing. Like, no. God really whispered in my ear and was like, there's more for you. Like, don't do this. Like, I'm telling you, I have so much in store for your life, for your journey. Just don't do this. So I stayed there and I felt, I was like moving back and forth from the wind. And then where I stood was exactly where the train doors opened. And usually there's somebody on the side of you trying to sneak in, but I didn't have that. It was like just me and the doors open. And when the doors open, I said, oh my God, I'm still here. And I stepped onto the train platform and I felt like I was in a new place. I was going somewhere. And my eyes, I was filled with tears. And I was like, I'm still alive. There's more for me. God has more for me. God has more in store for me. And it's true. I never would have had 3 children. I never would have had, a wife. Me graduating college from LaGuardia Community College to Berklee School of Music. I didn't even know I was capable of doing some of those things, to, building over 7 recording studios in New York City. I didn't see any of it. I just saw my current situation and that I couldn't get out of it. And it does not take away from anyone that may be struggling, mentally, where they feel as though they can't produce or do something beyond themselves. I just knew that was it for me. And now, from holding on and really accepting what God had for me, I've been able to see things in my life that I never thought. Like I've been to Japan, Cuba, freaking Prague, Czech Republic, Germany, I've been to different countries. And again, just not even just those experiences, but the experiences of me waking up and bothering my children. Me, Daddy, stop it. Because I got a booger or something. Those little moments are the things that really have changed my perspective on what God has for me. And the crazy thing is, when I think about production, I think about producing, I think about, a lot of the things that we create are all written. We write them from the script to the screen. All of these things are thoughts, and we write them out and then we produce them. And that's exactly the same thing that God did. And I think about my journey. And this week, I stumbled on Instagram, and a young lady had posted right before. She said, God, just accept me. And everybody's in the comments like, don't do it. This is it. And she was calling and crying out for help. And the whole night, I hit up a friend like, yo, hit her up, call her, text her. I'm DMing her. I'm calling her through Instagram and all of these things. And her family got to her just in time. And in production, it could be, the depression is crazy. The things that you'll go through, you'll be like, oh my God, again, I'm going through this situation. I don't know what my next gig is. I don't know, my camera broke, my lens, I can't rent, I don't have insurance. There's so many things that happen in production. But I'm telling you that there's so much more for you in this world. There's so much more in this space. Just make sure that you are day to day, loving yourself in this industry, because it could really tear you down. This industry is hard, and so many people, they get caught up in fame, even fortune, whatever it may be. But the likelihood of you, producing something that's special it really depends on you, your mind, and you combating anything that may be negative, that may be negative that you may tell yourself, because you also have to accept that. And during that time, when I look back at myself, I said, oh my gosh, I accepted that's who I believed who I was. And that wasn't true. It just wasn't true. And I think the mental component of really having those plans and those little goals, those daily goals of, if you're writing a page and you're thinking that you can't, or you got writer's block, or your actor canceled on you, or the person who's your boom operator just didn't show up, don't get discouraged. Or if the film that you produce wasn't what you thought it was going to be, or if you produce this music and no one has been listening to it on Spotify, you're like, I put all this work and no one's listened to it. And there's a story, I'm unsure exactly who, but there's a story about a gentleman who was very depressed, he wrote this book. And please put it in the comments if you know exactly the story I'm talking about. But basically, from my understanding, he wrote this book and he was going through this stuff through publishers, and he was just so distraught. He was so just going through it. And he committed suicide. His mother went in, took the same book that he wrote, and said, I am going to get this published. She got it published. And it became like a bestseller. I don't know what book it is, but this is a story that someone told me. And I thought that was phenomenal. I couldn't believe it. I said, the same thing that he produced, she just had the will and the power to keep pressing forward. So whatever book, whatever, music piece you want to write, even down to, film, anything that you want to produce, I promise you, if you just keep the next foot forward, you just keep pressing on, that you're going to be able to do it. You're going to be able to do it. I like this guy, LaRussell. He's been giving gems on podcasts and things like that. And he was just like, even valuing who I am. He had different meetings with record labels, and he had another meeting with a known DJ, and they were like, man, it's not, he said, I left because they just didn't value my time. And I said, oh my God, just that part, just that in itself, man, they didn't value my time. So we got up out of there. We left. And then when I went to the record label and they didn't have no money and they wanted to own everything that I'm producing, that I'm creating, he said, nah, man, we got up out of there. And I think that is important, to know your worth, know that you're loved, know that you can really conquer and create and produce anything that, is instilled inside of you. So just continue to follow purpose, continue to create, continue to produce. I promise you, Production Pod, just keep on going. Just keep doing it, and it's going to happen for you. This has been another episode of Production Pod. Please keep your mental health intact, and you can do all things. Peace.